One of the most important things we can do in coming home to ourselves is understanding our deep biological needs. Now, this interview might be one of the most important things as a woman that you ever listen to, and it hopefully will start you on a journey deeper inside yourself and more connected with who you are authentically. I'm so excited to welcome Andi Locke, who is a German New Medicine or Germanische Heilkunde practitioner with decades of experience, also as a naturopath and holistic healer. She has so much wisdom. This is jam-packed, and it could not be more timely for us as women, our entire society, to hear this information. Come dive deep into our biology and how we can restore, or even first in ever experience in our lives, true peace and purpose. My absolute joy and delight to have Andi Locke back on the podcast today as we are coming home to ourselves. I wanted her on because she will bring this scientific background to help us understand why we are at war with ourselves, why so much of what's going on inside. Girls, you're doing it all right. You are busting your butt. You are working hard. You're momming hardcore. You're trying to do everything. And yet, if you're like me, I reached an utter point of burnout because it was like I was driving my car backwards. And it wasn't until I started to understand my biology that I was able to say, this is why life feels like a struggle. And Andi has this fantastic years and decades of background on learning how women can get into flow and alignment with their biology, and then be able to live a life of peace and be in health as opposed to in conflict. And so Andi is, if you didn't see her on the earlier podcast, I'll give you a little background. Andi is started out as a naturopath. Is that correct? Yes, you were a naturopath, and then you learned about German New Medicine, Germanische Heilkunde, and you then went, aha, this makes so much sense. And you started working with your patients, your clients, with that methodology, and that paradigm really is what it is. And then understanding how our biology and our minds are connected, and how once we get those into alignment, we get health. So with that, she's been doing this for multiple decades, and she's one of the great teachers of this knowledge and wisdom. And so she's one of the best people I could think of to have on to help us today.
Kelly, thank you so much for that wonderful introduction. I really appreciate it.
Oh, my delight having you. So
I'm excited to talk about this topic because it's hot right now, and I'm so excited that it's hot.
yeah.
I'm so excited that we are fed up. I'm so excited that we're stressed out. I'm so excited that we're finally realizing that maybe this isn't the way I should be living as a woman.
Absolutely. And how exciting that women are finally saying, hey now, I don't want to follow in the footsteps of my mother or her mother and seeing the total burnout because we're living in a contradiction. So how do you break that? Talk to me about what drives us because we are connected, our biology and our minds are connected.
Right.
So go ahead. Dive into that.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, we could talk on this for, 20 hours easily, but in a nutshell, I will say that what we've been taught all our lives about who we are, how we stay healthy, how we get sick, how we're supposed to live, it's all wrong. It's all based on whatever. That's all politics and stuff. It's not based on us. It's not based on biology. We need to look at indigenous cultures living indigenous lifestyles to see what it is we're talking about. And when we think of in our country, Native Americans, do we live similarly to Native Americans? It's like, no, not at all. And of course, technology aside, all the inventions, all of that aside, it doesn't matter about those. Are we still living in community according to our biological needs? And no, we are not. And so the reason, oh man, where do I even start? So let's start with Native Americans. Any culture, indigenous culture around the world, how did they live? They lived in community. They lived in small communities generally, and usually there's the chores that the men did, there were chores that the women did. They each had their role, they each had their identity. Because they had their role, they had an identity. They knew where their place was. And we started, of course, we were geared for reproduction. Our entire body is geared for reproduction. This is what happens. We give birth. We are raised as, for us, it's girls. And then at puberty, we change into being a being who can now produce life. That is our value. We have value at birth. Boys, men, they do not. They have to acquire territory, skills, accomplishments. And when you look at the Native Americans, what did the boys do? They went on their vision quest. They had to go on their hunts. They had to prove themselves as a warrior. That's how they got their self-esteem. So they were fulfilling their biological need. Our biological need, our bodies tell us every single month what our biological needs are. And that is have a baby. And so most of us were raised in I'm going to say the feminist movement. I certainly was. My grandmother, born in 1896, was a college graduate in chemistry, believe it or not, and met her professor who became my grandfather. And back in the days when there was that type of thing going on. And they had three children, and my grandmother immediately, I don't even know if she worked. I think she did a little bit, but upon marriage, what did she do? She started to have babies, and she had three. So she raised babies, and she was so active in her community, and she was raising her children. My grandfather was the breadwinner. They lived very traditionally in that way. They both cooked, though he would hunt. They both cooked, they both kept house, they both shared things together. It worked. It worked. And but when we look at society, when we look at relationships like that, they still exist. They absolutely do. But then what's happened? Because it doesn't exist for many of us. And so let's get back to Gemenische Heilkunde and how we know that biological conflict shocks determine what programs run in our body, which means when we experience a conflict shock, it's biological, it's not stress, it's not emotional trauma. It's when we have three criteria, and our subconscious determines this. And it's three criteria in that something just occurred that was distressing. It was also isolative. You're focused on it. You're all by yourself in that split second. And it's unexpected. When that happens, your biology changes instantly. It is adapting to help you in that moment to cope with what just happened because it's a life or death situation according to our subconscious, not necessarily according to our mind or our emotions or our mental state or our psychological state. It's not about that. It's about this internal code. It's a code behavior that we all have. Every species has a code behavior. And so we start a program. We're growing cells, losing functioning. Eventually, hopefully, we resolve this. We've just lost our job. We just lost our loved one. Something just happened. We just had a big argument. And eventually, hopefully, we resolve that. And when we do, our physiology changes. And now we go into what we would call the PCL phase, the post-conflict phase. If we grew cells, we'll break them down. Well, there's pain, swelling, and inflammation with that. If we lost cells when we were upset, we're going to replenish those. There's pain, swelling, and inflammation with those. If we lost functioning somewhere, we'll regain functioning. All of this is normal and natural. It's what we call being sick. though. So right there, we have to rewire. So being sick is actually a positive thing. Yes, it is. It is returning you to homeostasis. And we want that because we want to live in homeostasis, in balance. So what happens, let's get back to us as women. What happens is in cultures that don't live biologically, then people don't have a role. They don't know their place. So think of the Industrial Revolution here in the US in the, let's start it at the late 1800s when factories grew. We needed cloth to put on clothes on our men who were marching off to war because that was their biological need to protect, to defend. And our need was to make sure they were okay. Let's take care of them. And so we went into factories and we made the cloth and all of that. And after the war, that continued. Industrialization continued. More women entered the workplace. So now, oftentimes, having a family was delayed. But oftentimes, as soon as they found someone, they stopped working. They found a husband, right? They stopped working and they had their babies. Until at some point, they didn't. They decided in the early 1900s, and especially, I'm going to say after World War II, right? And then once the men came home from war, then it's like, well, we're going to keep working because, we like this. We want to be independent. We want to make money. We want to have this kind of self-esteem because we no longer lived in community. We lived in individual houses, a family by itself.
Mm.
And so all of culture changed. The family changed. The family is the root of all civilization. And it
Amen.
has been. It always has been that very close-knit community in which the family is at the core. And this isn't me making this up. This is when you look at history, this is how we've lived.
Can
Um,
I and I want to interject and touch on what you were just saying about that shift in the 1950s when the men coming back to war and the so I experienced this for myself. My husband was in the military. He was in Operation Iraqi Freedom, and after his second deployment, I know as a woman staying behind and then the army, they're deployed a long time. It's a year deployment and that rocks your world. I can only imagine what my grandmothers, great grandmothers went through when the men were gone for years at a time. There's such a lack of stability and safety, and you have to go into your masculine and say, okay, I'm providing for my family because I don't know. Like to me, I just have to assume that he's dead because I can't function in this space of unknown. I cannot. And so you go, all right, this is my life and I'm moving forward and now I am the boss and I am the protector of my family and the provider. And when the men come home, my gosh, aren't they? They have been through more than you can even imagine. There's no way to understand that. And you have been through so much. Like there was just from my personal experience, when he came home, I felt like I was done waiting and I wanted to have independence. I wanted to do what I wanted to do. I wanted to be my own person and express myself. And that ended up turning into him being a stay-at-home dad and me being a full-time breadwinner, and it made us miserable. We lived that for like 10 years, for a decade, and it almost destroyed our marriage. But feeling that truth of when you have that kind of stress, how can it not fracture your society when it's on a national level in particular?
right, exactly. Oh my gosh, your story is like right on point there. That is phenomenal. Imagine these women in the 1940s when their husbands are gone and many did not come back. This is a constellation. This is what happened in those late 40s and then in the 50s when we had the epitome of, inventions were coming. So now we could be a housewife again. And we were delegated to just be a housewife, relegated to that, in other words. And so we didn't have to go and be that, the Riveter, Rosie the Riveter. We didn't have to do that anymore. So all of society changed, and it really did kind of subjugate us a bit because we went into a role that we didn't have before necessarily. This
How
is
so?
this is now society telling us, women, stay home. We don't need you anymore. and us saying, wait a minute. But we have that vision of the woman vacuuming with the new vacuum cleaner that was invented and wearing, pearls and earrings and high heels. And we're told that this is what you should be. That's what society was telling us. This is who we should be. And then in the 60s, we had the whole counter revolution to that. It's like, wait a minute. We're being fed something here. We can be independent. We can work. We don't need men. And that's what I grew up in.
Mm.
So so it brings us up to that. And society changed even more in the 60s and equality, the whole equality thing. And I want to point out, first of all, we will never be equal because our bodies are different biologically. And equal does not mean one is above the other. That is not true. That is not true. But we were fed that we're supposed to be just like men. So who remembers in the 70s and 80s, we all wore the shoulder pads because what did that do? Oh, we look masculine now because that's what we had to do to succeed, to get ahead, to have
Power.
a career. We had to have power. We had to look bigger than we were. We had to look like men. We had to act like men. And that was, 80s, 90s, the 2000s. I mean, that's still going on now. We don't wear the shoulder pads, thank God, but
But pantsuit nation.
yeah,
So
Sioux Nation, exactly. So, yeah, so through this evolution over the 1900s, we see the breakdown of the family. We see women being fed lies, basically, of what we should be doing, and us protesting, no, we're going to do it our way. And then we do, and then we see like your story, Kelly. It's like, well, wait a minute, I'm miserable. This really doesn't work. I don't want to have it all, which is what I grew up with, Gloria Steinem, the feminist movement. We can have it all. We can work full time. We can have children. We can have, you know, 2.3 children, that picket fence, that husband, and all of that. And it's like there is a price to pay for that. And that price is what I'm going to call constellations.
mm,
And so now we're going to get back to biology. Because what happens in a fragmented society like that is that we experience conflict shocks because we don't know our role, we don't know our place, we don't know how to do this because we're not acting according to our biological code. And so we have a conflict shock that will impact in one hemisphere of the brain, and now we're conflict active. And then we have another conflict shock that impacts in the opposite hemisphere, which is how it works. There's one in each hemisphere. The moment that that second one impacts, our two brain hemispheres are vibrating out of sync from each other and out of sync from their normal natural rhythm. In biological societies, this is how I'm just going to pretend here, this is how they vibrated.
mhm.
Now they're going to war. So now there's a bit more going on there. But now they come back, they settle back into their roles, their routines, and now they're in their routine. So now we're us. Now we get one conflict shock. So this side's pinging like this, and then we get another conflict shock, and now this is what our brain hemispheres are doing. And this is how we are raising our children now, because this happens in our culture by the age of about 6 or 7 to our children. And so they are raised with a brain that isn't processing the way that my grandmother's, my grandfather's brains processed. Our brains are different because they're vibrating at such a rate that thinking doesn't occur the way that it used to. And we've lost the sense of our biological code because our brains are doing this. They're vibrating out of sync.
What does that lead to? The out of sync vibration, as opposed to the living biologically, what
Okay.
does that cause us to do?
Perfect question. So, what it leads to is at the moment of that second conflict. So, we had one vibrating okay in natural rhythm, one was going a little crazy. Now we've got two going crazy. The instant that happened, we had a behavior change. We had some sort of behavior change, and we were either fairly manic or fairly passive or inward, or we were aggressive, or we were um, focused on death, or we were very scared and we hid, we have a behavior change, and these are called constellations. So all of what we would call mental illness, and I'm putting that in air quotes because there's no such thing, but what we'd call mental illness, mood disorders, behavioral issues. What do we see in our children in the past 30 years? We see huge behavioral issues. It's caused by brains that are doing this. And so we can look at their brains and we can see this. This is not made up. We can look at a CT scan of a brain and we can see what programs have been activated, and thus we know how they will act and how they will think.
I want to go right into that with an example. We live in Amish country, so occasionally we'll get to see at various shopping locations Amish families, and I always wondered how in the world are their children so peaceful and calm, and my children are screaming because they want ice cream, and they're no matter how lovingly and the perfect parenting that I can possibly do, my kids still lose their minds so often. It sounds like it's because they are in constellation, because I haven't been at peace. Why are they so calm? They know their roles. I mean, the Amish, they
Right.
know what she does this and he does that and
Yep.
kids do this and everything is very much set and you can be at peace because you know your place.
Right.
And when I say know your place, I know a lot of women will hear that and go, what, like my place is in the kitchen? Like I'm supposed to stay at home and I can do things like, girl, yeah, you are incredibly capable. You are so creative. You are so powerful. But you are missing the point. And there, whether you want to say it's conspiracy or not, there the way that our culture has shifted is not in a way to support families or even women or men, like everybody is left out hanging in the wind. So we're talking about how, okay, all right, if that is the reality, how do I get myself back into alignment as a woman and recognizing that it is not a sentence to being a housewife, but it is about being at, like, don't we want to be at peace? Don't we? Well, let's acknowledge our biology. Let's say this lovely meat suit that we were given is, it has some rules and we need to understand how it works because it is giving us desires and drives and all sorts of things that we're either ignoring and pressing down and it squirts out sideways, or we can accept it and say, how can I work with this?
Right. Right. Oh man. Yeah. How do we do this moving forward? Well, first, and I want to address too what you said because women are going to say, "Oh, your place is, in the kitchen,"
Right.
and you just have to be a baby machine now. And I'm gonna, you hear all of this, and that's not at all what we're talking about. But if you're thinking that, it's because you are constellated.
Hmm.
So right there is like, I want to hold a mirror up. If that's what you think we're talking about, then you've got some exploring of yourself to do. Because, honey, you've got a biological code. And if you're angry about having to, or thinking you have to have children, then you've got work to do. This is if you're not engaging and feeling like, okay, wait a minute, maybe there's a different way I can have a purpose other than working all the time, raising the kids, putting the frozen meals on the dinner table every night, and driving the kids to soccer all the time, and go, 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 go. Maybe there is another way. And I'm just going to put that out there to any woman who's right now upset listening to this. I don't want this role. That's not what we're talking about. So take off the blinders there. You have a biological code. Wouldn't it be nice? Wouldn't it be wonderful if you could go through your day serene, not reacting to everything around you, not responding to everything around you, not being upset many times during the day? I have pretty much never talked with a woman under 45 who's got kids still at home and is working that she doesn't just occasionally during a day, bark at someone or get upset about something. And it's so part of their life that they don't see it anymore. It's just life. And imagine if they could go through their day in a serene manner, accepting what they see around them, knowing that if they want to change what's around them, they have to change what's inside them. Because their constellated behavior is spurring it on, the discord around them, the mad panic of getting food on the table, of having to get to work, of this and that. All of that is from our constellated behavior. So, so how do we do this? It's not like we're broken. You are not. Our biology is so fantastic. It is always putting you into the best possible position for you to deal with your life. And if your life isn't peaceful and serene, then you can make changes. You can make changes. So, one thing is to understand your biological need. And your biological need, this is biology. This is not our mental need, our psychological need, our emotional need. Our biological need is to give birth to children. Because when we do that, we have an instant identity. We will always have that identity, even if that child dies. We still have that identity. We have a place. We have a much more defined place. And women are right now rolling their eyes. Well, I know that. You're still missing the point. So when we understand that we have that biological need and we live according to it, then what we're doing is structuring our day so we stay in that place of serenity and peace and acceptance of what's going on around us. And that's not usually what we're doing. But once we have that identity, we now know what our role is. Our role is to bring up our children. And our culture is such that economically, women have to work. And I totally recognize that. And I also recognize that it's okay that you and your partner, your husband, have a goal that you don't eventually. And so it means working differently. It means he's going to probably have to step up to the plate a bit more. And that's wonderful because that pushes him into his masculinity to provide and to protect. His biological need is to provide and to protect. Our biological need is to be protected and to be provided for.
Can I interject right there? Because and again, that personal story of when I was the breadwinner and my husband was a stay-at-home dad. And I started to understand part of that biological role and need when I discovered home birth. And once I did, and I had natural birth and I could experience all the hormones and all the connectivity and the bonding, I didn't want to stop having babies, but I had to work.
Yeah.
And he was in the feminine role of caretaking and nurturing, and he was dying inside. And I was dying inside because I felt so much pressure. And and I also didn't feel like I could make my children or my family number one because work was number one. And when women feel that work is number one, I can't say no to my boss. I have to answer this email real quick because I'm working for myself. And if I don't respond in time, they're going to find another practitioner or whatever. And you have all of that pressure. And then you pile on social media and expectations, and you're like, I'm not hustling enough. We're not vacationing in Maui. Or like, I've got to step up to the plate. I've got to charge even more. You're getting moving farther and farther away from what do I need? I need to feel provided and protected for. And when I do, oh, peace.
Right.
We had to move. We had to move to a different state to have a different economic situation, so that then I could come down and he could take over. And when that switch happened, that is when like I had to have like 4 years of nervous system recovery
Yes.
and trying
Yes.
to discover who am I? How do I function as a biological woman?
Yes. Yes. Oh, Kelly, it just gives me chills to hear this because you've lived it. You've done this. This is exactly what we're talking about. So, all the women listening to this, this is not pie in the sky. It is absolutely possible to do this. It will take some time and some planning and figuring out with your partner, your husband, and it is absolutely possible.
Yeah.
Who cares about the vacation in Maui? Once your kids are older and they're on their own, that's when you vacation in Maui. There's nothing wrong with that.
I believe there's so much external pressure. I mean, even still am susceptible to it and feeling like I am a failure if we're not doing certain things. But and this was the reason that I felt so compelled to start this whole podcast was after this transformation and this switch and finding connection with my husband. Again, it was like the Grand Canyon between us.
Yes.
And then coming back into our understanding what does he really need? What do I really need? How
Yeah.
can we finally meet that? Even though it was so counterculture and so old school thinking,
Right.
it it settled us and it empowered us. And because of that, we just had this explosion of love. And when you are, like you said, you don't need these vacations in Maui when you are connected with your spouse, with your
Right.
husband, and you are happy at a core level. Screw Maui. I mean,
Right.
it's nice, but like last night, I desperately, the kids were being a little bit hectic and I just really needed some time away. And I told him, like, it would be great just to leave the house for an hour. And he said, "You want to go hang out in the bedroom?" I was like, "Okay." And we had some of the most divine time together of connecting and passion. And after that, I was like, "Oh my gosh, a restaurant could not have done this to me."
Right.
And right now, I felt like $1 million. We could have been on a luxury yacht somewhere, and it was the same experience of joy and delight and serenity that we often fantasize that we have to reach or achieve or something else to then finally get it. No, we need to be in connection with each other. We need to be in harmony and alignment with ourselves. And when we have that, that's the building block, like you were saying. It is about our the family unit and
Yeah.
strengthening that. And
Yeah.
then we feel that sense of belonging and purpose and
And peace.
identity.
Yeah, peace inside. Absolutely. Oh, I love it. I love it. I love it. Let me touch for a minute on territory.
Yes.
Because in the work that I do, Gamasha Kunde, which you see in the poster behind me, we have in the brain, when we look in the brain, there is a female territory and a male territory. It's on the temporal lobe, and there are five, I'll say, relays or circles along here that could have a potential conflict shock. And it's the territory areas, five on each side, that govern our hormones. And I'm talking estrogen and testosterone, the predominant female and male hormones. In people are like, oh, no, no, it's our pituitary, it's our hypothalamus. No, it's not. That's just the downstream. This is what governs the amount of estrogen we have and the amount of testosterone. So, what happens for a female? So, the female territory is on the left here. And for a right dominant woman, a right handed woman, if she has a conflict in the territory, it will land and instantly her estrogen goes down. Now, in our culture, like I said, this first one is usually around, oh, by 6 or 7, 95% of our girls have this because they're growing up in a culture that is not safe. And safe for them, safe for a girl means she is well provided for and protected and cared for. That's all that safe means. And so her estrogen goes down. And what does that mean? That means that in relation to her testosterone, it looks a little higher, which means now she's going to be a more tomboy type of girl. And she's going to want to play sports and excel at school and et cetera, et cetera. Now, I'm not going to say there's anything wrong or bad with that. I'm just saying it is not natural code behavior. If we were fully in our estrogen and we did not have any conflicts that were lowering our estrogen, we would all start our period at age 11. We would all start our period at age 11 if we were living biologically. So if you're starting after that, and I've talked with women who started at 17 and 18, that's a highly conflict active girl when she was younger. So this is the difference here. So right away, now if we grow up with a more masculine male um, mindset, what does that mean? It changes our entire life until we can hopefully solve that. And when we either solve it or we get a second one, and that will impact on the opposite side, on the male side, which now lowers our testosterone, which means our estrogen is higher, which is now when we get our period, now we have a female perspective. But we're usually in constellation and we'll go back and forth. And that's when we have an erratic period. Oh, it's 28 days. Oh, now it's 32 days. Oh, now it's 24 days. That's what happens. And how many women have 28-day cycles every single month? We don't. And so this is this is what happens. This is the start of it.
Mm.
And so, yeah, so territory is very important to understand. And I want to just, that's the biology of it. But let's look at what does that really mean? What's our territory? What is male territory? What is female territory? Because this is how our code behavior helps us to understand life is through our territory. The male territory is, I'm going to say it's fairly easy. It's the stuff out here. It's the stuff he's going to protect and defend. And we're not cavemen anymore. I know that. And we're not living in native societies. But for a modern man, it's going to be his workplace, his house, his workshop, his garage, his tools, his cars, his family, his soccer league that he plays in. Though that's all his territory. It's things that he will tend to have responsibility over. It's the things he'll protect. What's the female territory? And most women will say, "Oh, well, it's my job, it's the house, it's the kids." And yeah, it is the kids, but it's not the kids per se, in that what it really is the relationship with the children. Our inner territory is not like the outer territory that we can literally palpate. We can touch our house. We can touch the things at our work. We can touch our car. For a female, our inner territory is that place of connection inside. When we feel connected to someone, that's our female territory. When we don't feel connected, we know that. It doesn't feel right. There's strife, there's chaos. That's constellated behavior. And that we know there's a territorial conflict going on here. Because our normal natural way of being in the world is pretty serene and calm.
It's so ironic because it's just so opposite from
It
how we
is.
live. Like, wait, you're telling me that my natural state should be serene and calm.
Yeah.
Do you live in the US? Like,
Right, exactly. We're all constellated, heavily constellated. So
oh,
go back 5,000 years because I want to show you some proof that this is not something that I made up or that Dr. Hammer discovered. 5,000 years ago, think of Chinese medicine, acupuncture, and Chinese TCM, traditional Chinese medicine, and how they couldn't cut into the body. They had to observe it. So they're now observing energy pathways. They're observing the biological programs that Dr. Hammer discovered. But they also looked at behavior. And if you look at the list of female behavior of what was normal and natural, it was to be pessimistic, introverted, calm, and oh, there's a whole list. It sounds very negative. And that's normal female behavior discovered 5,000 years ago. It's going to be pessimistic, calm word, more inward, more introverted, more passive. Male male behavior that they saw was aggression, action oriented, driven. All right. So, how many women do we know now that are goal oriented and driven? How many men do we know that they just stay on the couch and play video games? All right. So
ouch.
yeah, ouch, we've switched roles. We have switched roles. And I want to go back to, I'm not saying that all women have to be depressed. That's not what we're talking about. When you are serene, when you are literally feeling connected and safe and protected and provided for, and everything around you is safe for you, that's what we're talking about. It's a balance inside us that we can relax now. We don't have to be in our masculine and go and make that money or make sure the kids are doing this and this and this and this. And yes, you can still be serene and make sure the kids get what they need. Absolutely. That's what this is all about. We've been doing that for thousands of years. But then we look at our culture and we realize, oh, well, if I'm going to do what the neighbors do, I'm not going to be serene, which is why we're starting to see a movement now. And I'm going to say I saw this back in the 70s and the 80s, back when it's the back to the land movement. We're going to go back to the land. We're going to live nowadays, it's live off grid. And we're going to grow our own food and have our solar generators and our windmills and all of that and go hunting for our food. And so we see this. It's not like that's wrong. Or look at the Amish, like you said. Look at those cultures that do still have more of a quote traditional role. It's not wrong or bad. They are living according to their biological code. And then I look also at, I was listening to podcasts of folks who used to be Amish and all that they said. And I listened to it with this ear and realized, oh my God, they had territorial conflicts too, which is why they are no longer happy and okay with being Amish. And it's because their constellated behavior. They had something that happened, and maybe they were more exposed to the outside world and that constellated them. I don't know. But it's just fascinating when I look at it from this lens. So, does that all make sense?
Oh, absolutely. And then, so, okay, so now I hear women going, okay, okay, Andy, I hear what you're saying. How do I get there?
How do you get?
Like right now, I can't just quit my job, or my husband's out of work, or he is one of those people that has no drive and
Yep.
whatnot. How can I just, pretend to be serene? How do you transition into that?
Right. And so this is not something that's going to happen overnight. I'm going to say
Amen.
it takes some work, some good inner work as well. And when we show up differently, the world around us changes, especially our inner core, our family, when we show up differently. So, one thing that a lot of women have done is they've taken a very specific course that is all about biological thinking and biological living as a female. It's called the Freya course, and it's biorelations.com. You can check it out. I do not get paid for saying this. I just want to put that disclaimer in here. I'm recommending it because it's the single most important thing you can do to change yourself. It's 12 weeks of transformation. And every time you go into that class, it's a 2-hour class, you will get triggered because it's going to bring up all your stuff and you want it to. Because if you don't bring it up, you can't work on it. So it's going to bring up your stuff. You're going to look at your life with an entirely different viewpoint and lens afterwards. During this, you've got homework to do during this course. And when you start doing the homework, you start getting more balanced and serene, and your family changes. It's like the most magical thing. It's a 12 weeks of magic is what I'm going to say. And so it's called the Freya course, biorelations.com. Now, this isn't the only place to learn this. And I will say, to me, it's the best. But there are women, American women, who have already written books about this type of thing, not bringing in the biology piece, which I think is really important. But there's already women who are talking about this and have, podcasts and courses and things like that. So it's not like this is brand new to America. It's not. It's been here for decades. But this particular course brings in the biology, and when our male brains hear about the biology, we get it on a deeper level because you can't argue
Beautiful.
with biology. It is what it is. So, So that's the first thing I would say. And a lot of women, I see women now like, oh, yeah, I'm going to take the Freya course, but I'm not there yet. So what do I do? And so I'm going to say start observing yourself. And the more that you can understand constellations and your own constellations, the more you'll have to work with when you take the Freya course. So I teach a course, constellation psychoses and constellations. That's one way to learn it. There's a little bit of material online about it. There's not a ton, unfortunately, in English. If you read German, there is. But there's courses out there that you can take. And so learning about your constellated behavior, know that anytime that you are responding, so I'll give you the common ones if that would be helpful.
Absolutely.
So if you find yourself directing, being a director in your house, let's say your husband's name is Bruce. Bruce, can you take the trash out? It needs to go out because the trash people are coming tomorrow. If you're acting like that to your husband, that's constellated behavior. That is called bioaggression. And that's a combination of two conflicts that are your identity conflict, which we have talked about, and also, well, it's probably two identity conflicts. The other on the opposite side is territorial anger. That's a male one. So it's two identity conflicts. You so don't know who you are that you are going to be sharp with people. You're going to be aggressive, and it could be with your words. Do this, do that. When you find yourself barking, realize that you are constellated. And so if you can recognize that and realize, okay, I'm going to take a deep breath and I'm going to see, can I approach this situation differently? I want the kids to unload the dishwasher. How can I do that differently? And come up with something different. Make it fun. Make it a game. Be polite. I mean, there's so many different ways of doing this. So that would be one thing. If you find yourself kind of barking, being directive, get this done, do this, don't do this, stop that. Any kind of behavior like that, that's bioaggression. You don't know who you are, and you haven't for most of your life.
Well, I would say most people would say, like, no, no, I'm the boss. I'm the person who gets things done.
Right.
So help me understand what you just said of saying, like, you don't know who you are.
You know who you are from a constellated behavior. Yes. You
Mm-hmm.
don't know who you are from a biological perspective
Mm-hmm.
because you've been so masculine your whole life. And so this is a whole new understanding of who you are. And this is not going to be 2 weeks of understanding. This is going to be months and years of really understanding yourself in a whole new way. And when you do, you're going to be so much happier inside. You're going to be more fulfilled, more content in your life. It's what we want. It's what we think we're trying to go after when we're telling them to do things. We're trying to do it because we can get things done and then we can relax and be content. That's not how this works. That is not how this works. That is the opposite.
Absolutely. My goodness, that again, that speaks so much to my journey of realizing that why is it that women who are drawn to like that homestead idea, for me, when I am at peace, when I am deep in my motherhood, when I am deep in my nurturing mode, and the nurturing can be nurturing my community, creating spaces to connect. It is all about that connection and nurturing. That is that mothering aspect that's so biological from my understanding. Why is it that when I am that way, all I want to do is garden. I just want to be out in the dirt and I want to garden and it feels so right and good. And I just want to be in the sunshine and I want to sit on the swings with my kids and I just feel flowy. And I
Yeah.
remember because of growing up with that masculine identity, I was so afraid of coming back into motherhood. When I left working full time, I called my mom and I said, I don't know that I know how to do this anymore. I don't know how to be a homemaker.
Yeah.
I think I suck at this. My husband's been telling me that because I was sucking at everything because I was trying to be the opposite of what I was. And he
Right.
was like, I don't want that. can you go back to being who you were before when you weren't, so masculine? But we didn't have those words at the time. And
Right.
so I remember being afraid. I remember being afraid, thinking, you know what, my identity is simply like I'm more of a tomboy kind of a person and I'm a go, go, go kind of a person and let's get her done. And goals. When I realized that that's not where my worth is. And that is, I just want to say that one more time, girls. That is not where our worth is. And my husband reminds me of this, and it boggles my mind because it's so counterculture. He says, "I love you for being you, not anything that you do." And I was so insulted when the first time he told me that. And I know he listens to this podcast. So, honey, yeah. And he knows that I had a hard time understanding what he was meaning. But it was
Yeah.
that no, your value isn't what you're building. It
Right.
is in who you are. And when we
That,
can get back to that, oh my gosh, the peace, girls, is you've never experienced it. And yes, you can enter your feminine. And no, you're not just a tomboy for life. These are not who you are. We take these constellations and we say, that's just my personality.
right.
And when we realize we can actually shift that and we can move into that, oh, what freedom.
Right.
Rejoice. Enjoy the dresses, girls, because they are liberating.
Yes. Oh my gosh. I want so many things. There's a quote out there that when you're on your deathbed, you're not going to be saying, "Oh, I wish I'd worked more." Right? You're gonna be thinking of what? Your loved ones. And that relationship with them is your inner territory. That's what makes you a balanced female, is those relationships. That when you're on your deathbed, you are surrounded by that love. And let's have it now, not just when we die, right? um, be, not do. So go back to the Chinese medicine 5,000 years ago. The women are the ones who they are. The men are the ones who do. It doesn't mean we're not busy. We are. We're busy being female and doing female things versus doing the masculine things that are providing and protecting others. That is not our role.
What do you say to women who say, but I love working. I love doing these things.
Right.
And I don't know how to function. I was like, I don't want to be stuck at home.
Exactly. So that's where I'm going to say this is the journey. I'm not saying we all women have to, lose their jobs, quit their jobs tomorrow and be home. We would have a society that was just totally dysfunctional. This is the journey of you to find yourself. It might be 2 years, it might be 5 years before you're at a point where, I'm really just going to stay home and make soaps and sell those at a farmer's market. And that's what you end up doing, and you love it, whatever it is. But this is the journey into yourself. You will figure it out for yourself. You're not going to figure it out and make a huge change that you're going to be miserable with. That's not what this is about. This is about finding that inner connection with yourself, which you think you've had, but you haven't. But you've had glimpses of it, right? You have glimpses of it. And it's getting back to that on a more full-time basis.
And this message is the resounding bell that I want to ring out from this platform in that women, it is okay. It
Yeah.
is okay to come home to yourself,
Yeah.
to have a complete redefinition of who you think you are so that you can actually be happy. And again, I know I'm already hearing women saying, I'm happy. I'm happy being alone with my cats,
Yeah.
working as, in out in the business world and climbing the ladders. That makes me really happy. Okay,
Right.
I that might feel like you're fulfilling an identity, but I'm just going to tell you, sister, that I'm pretty sure you probably don't know what true peace is.
Right.
And it's not that, well, and I, as a mother of daughters, what I encourage my girls to, and let's just leave this out there for people. I encourage my girls to enjoy and explore what interests them,
Yeah.
but that what their main goal is to find a good man who will help them feel provided for and protected for, will
Yep.
give them their, so that then they can really just enjoy the incredibly important work of
Yeah.
motherhood and of being a female. Being,
Right.
we are meant to sit on our thrones at home, surrounded by our children, or in like creating, we create the life and they provide and protect for us. And again, that might sound so old school, but I tell you what, I have found no greater happiness after going out there and kicking ass and being so, look at all the fancy stuff I've done.
Yeah.
It compares in no way. It
Right.
is so pale compared
Right.
to finding my peace as a woman and what that means. We have been robbed. And this is Andi, your information, what you're speaking is is
Mhm.
the way back. It is finding our way back to ourselves out of all the lies, out of all the crap, and saying, this is my peace.
Oh, Kelly, I love everything you just said. I want to say that can we maybe at some point get back to thinking that if we want to live in a society that is a good society to live in, and I think most of us would agree this is not a good society to live in, it begins with us.
Amen. That's exactly right.
Because if we are raising children who are not constellated, who are living according to their biological code, we will start to begin when they grow up. We will have a society that is balanced. Everyone has their identity, everyone has their role. They feel fulfilled, they feel loved, they are safe and secure, they are providing and protecting, they are fulfilling their own roles. And they are then going on to raise children who also are balanced. There is nothing more important for women than to create the world we want to live in. It's up to us, you guys. We're the driver of this. The men will follow. They already want to, but we've put them down so much, they don't know how to, but they will. They will step up. And once their testosterone increases, they will step up even more. And
It's
we look at the infertility rates, we have no question but to think that, okay, we're doing something wrong here. Sperm counts are down. Women can't get pregnant. This is a crisis in our country. We need to come back to ourselves. We need to find ourselves as women, as the people who create society. That's our role.
there's nothing more important. Exactly, just what
Right.
you said.
And it starts with the family. So,
Yeah, and I know a lot of, again, the same women that have been going, "Wow, what are you talking about?" are going to say like that, again, you can't put me in that box. You can't leave me in the kitchen. I'm going to wither and die. Honey, it's because you're out of balance.
yeah,
You're constellated. You are living in your masculine. Wouldn't it be beautiful to be able to lay that down and say, you are so valuable just being you and go into that creative because I have experienced no greater creativity than when I have been able to rest in my womanhood.
yes.
Yeah. And yes, exactly about we are it begins with us.
It
We
begins with us.
are
Yes,
so we have to get ourselves in balance. We have to do all of the work. And that may feel unfair like, well, he's just sitting there playing video games or scrolling on his phone and he's
right,
not doing any. No, it's not his job. We are the relationship masters. And
right.
we set the tone for everything in our society, in our homes, in our relationships.
We do.
And if we're out of balance, yes, our kids are going to be out of balance. And then the world is out of balance. So,
Exactly.
yeah, let's reclaim it, girls. Let's
Reclaim it.
reclaim it
I love that. Let's reclaim it because this world needs us right now.
desperately.
This world needs us desperately. And I want to bring in a new word, maybe a new word for some, is instead of understanding yourself, I want to have you inner stand yourself. understand, understand who you are as a woman. You understand how you are as a masculine male. You're that now. Now I'm going to ask you and invite you to understand yourself as a female because that's different.
That's a delicious invitation. That feels so good in my system just to hear you say that.
Right?
Oh.
Understand. Yeah.
Is there anything else that you want to bring in before we wrap up? I think we were at the like
Uh,
that was a package. The bow just went on top.
Yeah, I feel that as well. That was the cherry on top there. So, yeah, I think this is such exciting work, and I'm so grateful to be part of it. And I'm past all that at this point. I have grandchildren who are teenagers. So I see society in a whole different way because I've lived to this point at least, and now at least I can share it and give back to the women who need it at this point. And I'm very, very grateful to be able to do that.
Andy, you are one of the wise women that we have been
Mhm.
craving, that we, especially those who have felt the pull to like, this doesn't feel right. This culture, I feel like we need to shift back into something different. I don't know what it is because I don't want to be trapped as a woman. I don't want to be shackled like
Right,
the idea of like stay in the kitchen, stay at home, but
right.
I want the freedom to be a woman. And we need you. Thank you so much for being here for us as we
This
try to find our way back to ourselves.
this is true freedom. What we're talking about here is you want to be free, girls? This is the way to do that. You're not free right now. You think you are, but you're not. This is freedom.
Mm.
Understand yourself.
Beautiful. I will link all ways to connect with you. I will link the Freya course that you so graciously pointed us to, and I will link the course that you have for constellations specifically, so people can just go right to those spots. And yeah, if you guys have questions, we can reach out to Andi as well, and to myself. I will be hosting my first women's circle, and this is the heart of what we're doing, February 22nd from 2 to 3 p.m. So please, you can visit wholewomanawakening.com for more info on that. But gosh, Andi, thank you so much.
Oh,
Thank
you're
you.
so welcome, Kelly. I'm so honored to be here. Thank you for having me. Hi, I'm Andi Locke, and I'm sharing an answer today to a question that Kelly received, and she sent it on to me and asked me if I would respond, and I am more than happy to. It was from our perimenopause menopausal interview that we did, and so the question was, what do we do if your past childbearing years or you weren't able to have a baby to resolve the conflict? So, what is the option to finish a biological program when having a baby isn't possible or practical or desired? Which is almost a whole different question and conversation, but it is a fabulous question and it does apply to a lot of women. So, if you're already having menopausal symptoms, it means you're already switching from that female perspective to a male perspective, which means you're already resolving the biological programs you've been running, usually for decades. So I really think this question is more about women of childbearing years who don't want to have a baby to solve the biological programs they're running. And so what do? Well, you do what we all do to solve a program. You find out, if you can, your original conflict shock. What was it that happened? And what is your track? It's keeping your body looping in the biological program probably every month. And we're talking maybe it's a very heavy period where you bleed a lot, or you have heavy clots, or you have a lot of discomfort and cramping, or something else similar to that. And you're tired of that. How do you solve that? So again, you do what we all do. You find that biological conflict shock that started it and find your tracks that are keeping it active, and you find a biological solution, or you change your perspective. So what the heck does that mean, right? Let's take an example that, let's say you're with a husband, a partner that you really, really love, and yet there's 10% of you that doesn't really trust him. That little 10% is enough to keep you cycling like this every single month, and that period ends up being the way that it is. And it's uncomfortable and you don't like it. And so, how do you find the solution? Have your periods always been like this? If not, then something happened. See if you can figure that out. And then you look at the tracks that are keeping you stuck. It's when that 10% gets activated and you don't trust them, it starts the program again. So what's a biological solution? Well, get a new partner, one that you can trust 100%. It's a biological solution. May not be practical or feasible. If not, then you need to change your perspective. So how can you change your perspective about that 10% that you don't trust in him? Maybe it's talking with other women who also didn't trust their man that 10%. You find out what they did and you implement that. So there's 8 billion people on this planet. There are 4 billion females. And so there are 4 billion answers to this. And that's what we do in a consultation. We figure that out. What would be the biological solution for you? Because what will work for you is not going to work for the next woman because she has a different track. Even though it might be the same biological program, her conflict shock was different than yours. So her solution will be different than yours. So many of our conflicts, I will say, especially our female type conflicts, are due to us women not feeling serene and peaceful and safe and secure in our relationships. Our relationships are a really good place to start, to strengthen those, to work through those issues that you have. So, but like I said, this is what we do in a consultation. We figure this out. I hope that helps. I hope it gives you at least a little bit of information about what do you do. You take care, and I hope to see you again soon.
I am experimenting with something new that I have been feeling called to create, a whole woman awakening circle. It will be an online, live, guided women's experience focused on alignment, responsibility, and coming home to yourself, your womanhood, your marriage, and your motherhood. Our first circle will be Sunday, February 22nd from 2 to 3 p.m. And we'll be gathering in a structured, intentional space that includes reflection, a guided meditation, and grounded sharing. This is not a venting circle or a place to stay stuck in victimhood. It's a place to come and get nourished and recharged, revitalized, and feel renewed afterwards. And to make sisterly connections with each other. This is something I'm trying with the intention of offering it monthly if it feels nourishing and aligned. Space is limited, and there is a short application to make sure that I can help the group to make sure it's all a good fit for everyone involved. If this resonates, I invite you to come apply at wholewomanawakening.com. If something in today's episode resonated with you and you're feeling a call to go deeper, I'd love to stay connected. I'm beginning to offer Whole Woman Mentorship. This is a one-on-one, intuitive support for women who are ready to realign with themselves, their marriages, and their motherhood. I'm also experimenting with a monthly Whole Woman Circle. It's a live, online, guided women's experience rooted in responsibility, presence, and coming home to yourself. You can learn more, join the community, and explore what's unfolding at wholewomanawakening.com. Until next time, may you feel supported coming home to yourself.